Welcome to the Porn Reboot Podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
Today, we're going to be talking about becoming number one or becoming an industry leader in your industry and the different stages of your reboot. This is a continuation of a series that I've been doing on the stages of your reboot, where I address success, everything from personal development to ambition to wealth to mindset and so on, and how you respond or react at different stages of your reboot. A lot of men are curious or have suspected that their out-of-control behavior has something to do with their success. You might feel that it's holding you back, but you just don't know how. And sometimes it becomes very easy to sweep it under the rug or tell yourself you're going to deal with it at some point in the future because you need to focus on your business or you need to focus on your career. So I'm breaking down all the different stages of your reboot. I'm using my experience over the past 12 years, both personal and with different clients, to share what I have observed, the way men react and respond at different stages of their reboot when it comes to these different aspects of success. Today, we're going to be talking about becoming an industry leader. And what I mean by industry leader is not becoming like a SpaceX or a Microsoft or an Apple, Google, nothing like that. What I mean is in your industry, wherever it may be, whatever it may be, maybe you own a landscaping business or you own an automotive repair shop or you own a mortgage company or an insurance brokerage or a law firm. If your goal is to become number one in your city, that is what I mean by industry leader. Not everybody has to be the biggest fish in the ocean. Your goal might be to be the biggest fish in your pond, and that's what brings you freedom. And that's what takes care of your family. Now, this series is very important. I'd like to reiterate that for a moment, because at the time of this recording, July 2024, economic times are a little bit strange. I do believe that, and I have it on good authority, that we are heading into some rather tumultuous times. I think it's very important to be prepared. And if you even suspect that your compulsive behavior is getting in the way of your ability to provide for your family, then I think you owe it to yourself to go back to the past few episodes and listen to this series and get what you can from it. This is experimental for me. I've never done it before. And to my knowledge, nobody has ever done it with out-of-control sexual behavior. But this is what I do. This is what I'm a nerd about. This is what I spend my nights doing and my days doing. All I do is study this behavior, how men react and respond to it, and I keep up to date with all the latest research and what is happening out there in society and in the economy. And this is based on what is happening in the economy. So one last thing. There are two things that uniquely make me qualified to talk about becoming an industry leader. First of all, within our program, I have coached multiple industry leaders across all sorts of different, we can call them niches or we can call them industries, from the automotive industry to the oil and gas sector, to internet marketing agencies, to coaching, to running churches, building churches, missionary work. I've done it all and I've spoken to everybody. And I have a unique understanding, a very intimate understanding of the things that men face when they are at different stages of their reboots. The second thing that uniquely qualifies me for this is that when it comes to the subject of pornography addiction, Porn Reboot under Elevated Recovery is the number one, the industry leader. As a matter of fact, we are at a point where we are constantly having to battle plagiarism. If I'll be honest with you, I've given up on battling plagiarism. We're just giving certification right now because people just come up and just steal our stuff latently. So I might as well just start certifying individuals and teaching them the system because people are going to steal it anyway. And I used to be so frustrated about that till mentors of mine pointed out to me that, JK, you can't fight everybody. If they keep stealing your stuff, despite all the material that's available to them out there, it means that whatever they stole in the first place was working. And they can't create it on their own, so they keep stealing it. I guess the downsides of being an industry leader, you have to constantly defend against people trying to steal from you or copy you, that sort of stuff. But it is what it is, okay? Those are the two things that make me uniquely qualified to talk about this. So we're going to begin with your early reboots. When you are in your early reboots and you're trying to be an industry leader, or you already are an industry leader, but your behavior has reached a point where it's sabotaging you in multiple areas, the two emotions that you're going to be feeling is anger and frustration. Anger and frustration at what? Anger and frustration that the economy and even your industry are rigged to defeat you. You will go from hope to hopelessness. Understand this. Your hopelessness in your reboot, and the hopelessness comes from isolating yourself, from constantly trying to end this behavior on your own, realizing that it's not helping you, and then you're just like, man, it's hopeless. Everywhere I go, there's pornography. It doesn't matter whether I use a filter, I'm going to cross it. I've worked with different therapists. I keep going back to it. I've tried everything, and it just doesn't seem to stop. Nothing has changed over the years. That hopelessness begins to infect you. It begins to infect other aspects of your life. And that turns into anger. I have seen so many men who used to be successful who feel angry. They feel that something went wrong in their industry. I'll hear them complain about the new regulations, what their city is doing to hold their business back, how the economy is not fair to them, which is crazy because in the past, this is not how they would respond. They are being very reactive now. These were people who in the past would see these things as challenges. They would understand that being an entrepreneur or being in a high level in this particular career, one of the requirements is your ability to adapt. But instead, they were just acting like average men when they were in their early reboots and throwing up their hands. I'm really glad that many of these men came across our program because even though they just came in to end their out-of-control behavior, many of them came to realize that, oh crap, pornography was getting in my way. I was wearing these lenses that were preventing me from seeing my business and my career for what it was. And I began to realize that, man, I'm being very, very reactive to things that are happening in the marketplace. So that's how you act when you're in your early reboots. And one of your goals is to become an industry leader. When it comes to the middle reboots, what I've noticed is that a lot of professionals are rushing to make money when they're in their middle reboots. And what I mean by rushing to make money, I mean you're rushing to make what some might call fuck you money, or you're rushing to retire before outside changes make business impossible, which means that you no longer believe in the longevity of your business. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to sell as much as possible. And often when you start doing that, you start cutting corners. You start reducing the quality of your business. Sometimes you start doing so to structure your business so that it looks good for a sale. So you're looking for somebody to buy your business and so you can cash out. Other times you just want to stack as much money as possible. So you go from being a business where there was a good relationship with your clients or customers, and now you start becoming a lot more commercialized in an effort to scale really quickly, but it's only for the profits and no longer for the service or product that you were providing. Another thing I see is that men get very scared when they're in the middle stage of their reboots. Here's the thing about the middle stage of your reboots. Your middle reboot is the longest stage of your reboot. And one of the characteristics is that you may find yourself slipping consistently to the same thing that you haven't quite figured out. A very simple example could be that you find that you are always slipping when you are alone. So maybe you work from home and you're just like, man, I can work from the office and I can work from home, but every single time I work from home, I keep slipping. And no matter the tools you use, it feels as if you just can't get your head wrapped around it. And it's not as simple, you already know this, as just setting a boundary and saying you're not going to do it. For every person, there is something customized about your reboots that you will figure out during the middle reboot stage. Early to middle reboot can be mostly a template. In fact, I actually have something called the early reboot map, where I can literally map out all the different conditions you need to fulfill in order to move to the middle reboot. However, the middle reboot is where you start moving into the lifestyle changes, and everyone's lifestyle is unique. That's the reason why if you try to use a templated methodology to move through the middle reboot, it doesn't work for you. The downside of this, especially if you are a driven man trying to become an industry leader, is that you do get a little bit frustrated because internally you're thinking, man, this is lasting forever. Am I really going to be able to end this behavior? I mean, don't get me wrong. My reboot is going way better than it was. I'm not slipping and relapsing every day. But this particular situation in which I predictably relapse, it doesn't make me feel that great. Not at all. Interestingly enough, this also transfers over to your work and other areas of your life. This is a generalization I'm making. I want to make it clear. This is not a rule. But I do want you to be self-aware enough to look at your own life and find out if that's happening to you. Because your pornography addiction is not compartmentalized. As much as you think it's compartmentalized because you've been isolating yourself, you've been living in secrecy. It is impacting other areas of your life. And because you think you've been compartmentalizing it, you do not see the impact it's having on those other areas of your life. You're too close to the problem. But one of the ways that it starts impacting your business is you just want to be done with it. You're just like, man, I really want to be done with this behavior. I really want to stop this slipping once a week or once every 2 weeks or under whatever conditions that I'm slipping under. But in your business, you're like, you know what? I really want to get out of this. Like things are uncertain. I know I want to be number one, but at the same time, it's really hard because every time I have to reinvest my profits into the business and then I'm scared and then my cash flow is low. Or every time that I decide that I want to go for a promotion, I need to demonstrate to everyone that I'm working extra hard. I need to push myself. I need to have this mask that I wear every time I go to work. And it's so tiring at this point, and I'm still slipping and still dealing with a lot of stress. Why? Your lifestyle hasn't been fully maxed out yet. You haven't fit that into your reboot in the right way. So you're still a little bit unhappy here and there. So I would just love to get out. Oftentimes, you might not be actively working towards getting out of your business or getting out of your career, but that thought is there. And that is the driving thought for you. How can I get out? In the late stage of your reboot, now this is where things start changing. One of the things I've noticed among clients who are in the late stage of their reboot is that you are a lot more alert and responsive, especially to things that are happening in the marketplace or in your career. So you're on the lookout for competitive changes. You're on the lookout for threats. Now, I will admit, when it comes to business for me, in a few of my businesses, I do have a tendency to stay in this sort of behavior. Again, not my sexual behavior, but with business, like alert and responsive regarding competitive changes and threats. Reason being that in the last couple of years since COVID, in my business, a lot of people have come out of the woodwork claiming to be able to help people end their behavior with pornography. However, while I think it's a great thing that there are more and more people out there who are helping men and raising awareness, many of these people also don't know what they're doing and do not have the appropriate training. So they are not able to actually help men. In fact, in some cases, they end up hurting men. And because they come in at such low prices, because they're just trying to make money or figure out how to become a coach, or they're a therapist who has had a lot of wives come in and say that, hey, my husband is struggling with this. They're like, well, I learned some things about addiction while I was in school. This should be the same thing as a substance abuse addiction. And they use that model at a low price to work with the client. The client looks around and goes like, well, I'm just going to go with the lowest price thing because that's all I can afford. And I mean, I don't think this problem is that serious. And besides, my wife's going to leave me if I don't do this. So I'm going to go with the therapist that she recommends. And then you end up getting jaded because you end up leaving feeling that, man, even this therapist couldn't help me. How is a coach, how is somebody else going to be able to help me? That's one of the reasons why I stay alert and responsive. However, I am changing that and I'm working towards something else. So again, if you're in your business and you're thinking that way, constantly like on the lookout for who's around the corner, that is synonymous with being in the late stage of your reboot. That's the behavior I've observed. And when it comes to the maintenance stage, this is a little bit later in your reboot, and you'll find fewer and fewer men who are industry leaders up in the maintenance stage. But they're out there. But one of the characteristics that I've observed, and I'm admittedly still working on, is they transform all competition in their career and in their industry. And they transform it by making breakthroughs in their industry. And what that means is they become creative. I want you to understand something. If you do not reboot, you cannot maximize your creativity. This is something I know for a fact. We have had many artists or artistic individuals come through our programs, and I have seen it firsthand where men who are pure artistic, that is their thing, that is their gift and their talent, they lose their creativity in the early and middle stage of their reboots. I see them just working on shit, grinding away, and they never have anything to show. And they know they have lost their edge because of their out-of-control behavior. And as soon as they have some months of control under their belt, suddenly you see a completely different version of them. You also see this in some really, really technical guys, maybe to the point that they also treat like coding or whatever it is they do as an art. You see them get to a whole new level of productivity, but then their creativity just becomes something else. I'll be on calls with some of these brothers when they're in the maintenance stage, and the ideas they're talking about get me excited. I'm like, hey, can I throw some money your way? Because don't forget me when you're the next, don't forget me when you're the next big thing. Because I see a lot of that. And again, I really have to be transparent with this in my life. When it comes to the maintenance stage, I am constantly motivated by my clients who are in the maintenance stage. I mean, at this point, they are becoming peers. I am ahead in terms of years, but I vividly remember what the maintenance stage was like. And when they get to that level, they're just really maintaining what they have as their life, as their self-image changes. And their creativity and the new things they do in their industry challenges and inspires me. And one of the things that I've been working on is constantly working on breakthroughs when it comes to pornography and pornography addiction. We've done some cool things, and we're doing some cool things now. We've done a few cool things with AI. Now we're developing a video game. The stages of rebooting and how it affects success is another thing that we're working on. On top of that, we have things happening with the Dating Reboot program, which is a very new way of dating ethically and authentically in today's society. Things have really changed, guys. So even the ways that we approach women, the ways that we approach relationships with women today have to be completely different. We're doing some innovative things in the Optimum U program. We are the only porn addiction or sex addiction recovery company out there that is beginning to offer hormonal testing. We understand that when it comes to your out-of-control behavior, a lot of the symptoms that are synonymous with pornography addiction are also synonymous with different hormonal issues. So for instance, most guys will think, oh, I have low testosterone. So they'll go to their general practitioner, and you might just get your testosterone levels and your estrogen levels tested. But in reality, there are multiple markers that you must measure in order to figure out where you are as a man. You have to test your total testosterone and your free testosterone. You do have to test your estrogen levels, but you also need to test for prolactin, because prolactin is what you release whenever you masturbate an orgasm. And there are some people who have elevated prolactin levels, which can lead to lethargy. You also have to check your cortisol levels if you are constantly in a state of stress, and you might be medicating your stress with your sexual behavior. We check SHBG, which is sex hormone binding globulin. We check your luteinizing hormone. Both of these are very important when it comes to your actual sex drive. You could have high testosterone and extremely low sex drive, and it has something to do with both of these markers. There are a few other markers. This is not what this episode is about, but these are the innovations that we are implementing, partnering with specific labs, creating unique supplements that help with your sex drive and help you as you move through the withdrawal period. These are the things that when I'm working on them with our team, I truly feel that I'm embodying that industry leader mindset that I see in many of the clients. And that is something I'm going to keep working on. So, brother, I hope you found this helpful. This is becoming number one or becoming an industry leader and the different stages of your reboot. I want to take a moment to shout out the brothers who actually responded to me personally when it came to the different stages of your reboot. Shout out to them. One of them actually ended up joining the intensive program because we had a great conversation and he was a winner. He was ready for that. Go ahead and just send me a email to jkemezi@elevatedrecovery.org. That's jkemezi@elevatedrecovery.org. And all you need to do is put podcast in the subject line, and I'll have a conversation with you on whatever your thoughts are on this. I had another guy who sent me some super cool new reports on withdrawal symptoms and some of the new studies that had come out on how long withdrawal symptoms last. Actually, withdrawal can begin as early as 10 days after quitting pornography. So some pretty cool stuff that I'm going into with him. So would love to communicate with you guys. Thank you.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot Group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.